There was one night in Michael Jackson's life that almost no one in the world knows about. A night when the pressure, the loneliness, and the weight of being Michael Jackson became too heavy even for him to carry. It happened late in the evening behind the closed doors of the Jackson family home in Encino. The world saw a superstar, the most famous man alive, but that night, Katherine Jackson saw something else. She saw her son, a son who walked into her living room, trembling, a son whose eyes were red, whose voice was breaking, and whose hands were shaking so badly he had to hold onto the wall just to stay standing. And then he said the words no mother is ever prepared to hear. "Mom, I can't do this anymore." What happened next, what Katherine told him, how Michael responded, and the decision he made that night remains one of the most emotional, personal, and transformative moments of his entire life. A moment the world never saw. A moment that changed everything. And tonight, you will hear that story. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss our emotional and revealing stories about Michael Jackson. Your support helps us keep his legacy alive in the most powerful way possible. The house in Encino was unusually quiet that night. No laughter from the younger siblings. No music drifting down the hallways. No distant echo of rehearsals or conversations. It was one of those heavy, suffocating silences that didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the world was holding its breath. Katherine Jackson was in the kitchen preparing tea when she heard the front door open. A soft click. Nothing unusual. Michael often came late, sometimes exhausted from rehearsals, sometimes restless, unable to sleep. But tonight, the sound of the door was different. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't casual. It wasn't the quiet tiptoe of someone trying not to wake their mother. It was hesitant, as if someone wasn't sure they want to come inside at all. Katherine dried her hands and stepped into the hallway. "Michael," she called softly. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then she saw him. Standing just inside the door, bathed in the faint yellow glow of the entry lamp, was her son, the most famous man alive, looking nothing like the legend the world knew. Michael wasn't wearing sunglasses. He wasn't smiling politely. He wasn't pulling himself together with that performer's instinct that allowed him to hide everything. He looked small. His shoulders drooped, not from exhaustion but from defeat. His eyes were red and unfocused, as if he'd been staring at something far away for too long. His hands were shaking, subtly, but enough for Katherine to notice immediately. She stepped toward him. "Michael, sweetheart, what's wrong?" Michael swallowed hard. His throat felt raw, like he'd been fighting to keep words buried for hours. When he finally lifted his eyes to his mother, Katherine felt her heart clench. There was fear in his eyes, and something worse, surrender. "Mom," he whispered. She waited. Michael drew in a shaky breath, trying to force out the sentence that had been suffocating him all night. He opened his mouth, but the sound that came out wasn't strong or composed. It was broken. "I can't do this anymore." The words left him like a confession he had been terrified to speak. They echoed down the hallway, fragile and trembling. Katherine froze, her breath caught in her chest. She had seen Michael tired. She had seen him overworked. She had seen him frustrated with the industry. But she had never seen him like this. His knees buckled slightly, and she rushed forward, catching his arm. "Michael, come here," she said, guiding him to the couch in the living room. He sat down slowly, like someone who hadn't slept in days. His hands were still shaking. Katherine sat beside him. "Tell me what happened." Michael kept his eyes on the floor. The shadows under them were deep, darker than she had ever seen. His voice was barely audible. "They won't leave me alone." Katherine's expression softened. "Who won't?" "The world." He swallowed again. The pressure, the expectations, the cameras, the lies, the rehearsals, the noise, the lawsuits, the rumors, the people who say they love me and the people who want to destroy me. "I can't breathe anymore, Mom." A tear slipped down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. He just let it fall. Katherine placed a hand on his back. "Michael, you're strong. You've always been strong." "I don't want to be strong anymore," he whispered. "I'm tired of being strong for everyone else." His breathing grew uneven. He pressed a hand against his forehead like he was trying to hold his thoughts together before they shattered completely. "I go on stage and I give everything I have," he said, voice shaking. "I smile. I dance. I act like I'm okay. But inside, I feel like I'm disappearing." Catherine's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. She needed to be calm. For him, "Michael," she said gently, "look at me." He lifted his head slowly. "You're not disappearing," she said. "You're overwhelmed. You're hurting. But you're still here." Michael looked down at his hands again. "Am I? Sometimes I feel like people see a product, not a person. Like I'm trapped in this image they created. And every time I try to be myself, they punish me for it." His voice cracked again. "I feel alone, Mom. Completely alone." Catherine cupped his cheek with her hand. "You're not alone. You have me. You have your family. You have people who truly love you." Michael's eyes closed. But do they see me? Or do they see Michael Jackson? The question hung in the air, heavy, painful, impossible to ignore. Catherine didn't answer right away, because it was a question no parent should ever hear from their child, especially one who had given so much to the world, yet received so little peace in return. Michael stared blankly at the wall across from him. "Tonight, I just broke. Something inside me snapped, Mom. And I thought maybe I should just walk away from everything. Music, fame, the spotlight, all of it. Walk away?" Catherine whispered. He nodded slowly. "I don't know who I am anymore, and I'm scared I'll never find myself again." For the first time that night, Catherine felt real fear. Not for the superstar, but for her son's heart, his spirit, his sense of self. She tightened her grip on his hand. "Michael," she said softly, "listen to me." But before she could finish, there was a sound from the hallway, a soft knock. Michael tensed immediately, his whole body going rigid. Catherine turned her head. Someone else was in the house. Michael's eyes widened in fear. "Mom, I didn't tell anyone I was coming." The knocking came again, slow, soft, intentional. "Who is that?" Catherine whispered. Michael swallowed hard. I don't know." Catherine didn't let go of Michael for a long time. Even when he loosened his grip, tried to step away as if embarrassed by his own vulnerability. She kept one hand on his arm, grounding him, reminding him he wasn't alone. But the moment she tried to speak again, Michael lowered his head and took a shaky breath. "Mom, I don't know who I am anymore." The sentence hit the room like a confession, and a cry for help at the same time. Catherine gently guided him to the sofa. "Sit with me," she said softly. But Michael didn't. He couldn't. He stayed standing, pacing slowly across the carpet. One hand pressed his forehead, the other wrapped around his stomach like he was holding himself together. He looked tired in a way Catherine had never seen before. Not physically exhausted from rehearsals, not emotionally drained from interviews or accusations. This was deeper. This was the exhaustion of a man who'd been carrying the world on his shoulders for decades. "Michael," she said carefully, "tell me what's happening." He stopped pacing. "It's everything." His voice cracked. "The pressures, the expectations, the people depending on me, the rumors, the lies, the rehearsals, the bills, the tabloids, the doctors, the lawyers, the fans, the contracts, the rehearsals again. And then..." His voice cut out. He lifted his trembling hands. "I wake up every day feeling like I'm being pulled apart. Like I'm living 10 different lives, and none of them belong to me." Catherine felt her chest tighten. Michael swallowed hard. "And everyone keeps telling me I have to be strong, that I'm Michael Jackson, that I can do anything, that the world needs me. But what if I can't do this anymore? What if I don't want to?" Catherine stood slowly and walked toward him. "You're not alone, Michael." He flinched at the words. "Mom, I am alone. You don't see what happens when the cameras stop, when the gates close, when the crowds go home, when the lights turn off." He finally raised his eyes to hers. "I come home and it's silent. Too silent. I don't know who to trust. I don't know who's real. I don't know who loves me or who loves the idea of me." Catherine placed both hands on his cheeks gently. "You're still my son." He closed his eyes. A tear slid down, but before she could pull him into another hug, a sound broke the fragile quiet between them. A phone vibrating on the coffee table. Persistent, demanding. Michael tensed. His eyes snapped open immediately. He didn't have to check the screen. He knew who it was. Again, Catherine grabbed the phone. The caller ID flashed. "Frank, production office." She frowned. "Michael, they should not be calling you this late." Michael looked away, shoulders tight. "They call every night." The phone vibrated again. Catherine declined the call. The very next second, it rang again. This time, a different name flashed on the screen. "Lawrence, legal." Then another call waiting signal from a third number. "Morris, finance." Catherine's eyes widened. All of this in one night. Michael sank onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. "Mom, it never stops. Everyone wants something. Everyone needs something. They say it's urgent. Always urgent. Everything is life or death for them, but nobody asks if I'm okay." The phone finally went silent for 10 seconds. Then, buzz. A text message came in. Catherine picked up the phone, despite her own trembling hand. "Michael, they're pressuring you about the contract again?" He nodded weakly, still covering his face. "They said if I don't sign by Friday, it'll be catastrophic. For the company, for the tour, for everyone involved." "And for you?" Catherine asked quietly. Michael didn't answer. He didn't need to. He felt trapped, like the walls were moving inward, like he was drowning in responsibilities he never asked for. Catherine sat down beside him. "Michael, you need to breathe." But breathing was exactly what he couldn't do. His breaths came shallow and fast. He pressed a hand to his chest. "I don't want to disappoint anyone. I don't want to be the reason people lose jobs. But, Mom, I don't think I can physically do what they're asking. Not again. Not like this." Catherine squeezed his hand. "You're human, Michael." He shook his head hard. "Not to them. To them, I'm a machine. I'm an investment. He stopped. A tear fell onto his shirt. He wiped it quickly, almost ashamed. Then he whispered something Catherine wasn't expecting. "They said I owe them." A cold shiver ran through her. "Owe them what?" Michael stared at the floor. "My life." Catherine felt her stomach drop. "Who said that to you?" Michael didn't answer. Instead, he leaned back, pressing his hands against his temples. His voice came out as a whisper, trembling. "They're running out of patience. They said the world is waiting. That people have already paid. That I need to stop hesitating and be Michael Jackson again." Catherine's voice softened. "And what do you want?" For a long moment, Michael didn't speak. Then he looked at her with eyes full of pain and a truth he had never said out loud before. "I want to feel safe, Mom." The simple honesty of it shattered something inside her. Before she could respond, a faint noise came from the hallway. Footsteps approaching the living room. Michael stiffened instantly. Catherine turned. Someone was in the house. At that hour, without announcing themselves. Michael's entire body went cold. He whispered, "Mom, please don't let them take me tonight." Catherine stood up, shielding her son with her own body. The footsteps grew louder, slow, firm, purposeful. Someone Michael didn't want to see. Someone who wasn't supposed to be there. Someone who had come because he told his mother he couldn't do this anymore. And they had heard enough. Catherine didn't move at first. She just sat there, staring at her son, the boy she raised in Gary, Indiana, the man the world claimed to know, the legend who filled stadiums but now stood in her living room barely able to breathe. Michael's chest rose and fell unevenly, panic twisting through every inhale. He wrapped his arms around his ribs like he was trying to keep himself from falling apart. "Mom," he whispered, "you don't understand. I'm tired. I'm so tired." Catherine placed her hands gently on his face. "Then sit with me. Tell me what's happening." But the words didn't come easily. Michael lowered himself onto the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees, fingers pushing through his hair. He looked younger somehow, like the little boy who used to hide behind her legs when the stage lights were too bright. For a long moment, Catherine just waited. She knew forcing him would make him shut down, so she stayed quiet, letting the silence become soft enough for him to speak into it. Finally, he exhaled shakily. "Mom, I'm losing myself." Catherine's breath caught. "Michael, what do you mean?" He lifted his head slowly, and the pain in his eyes nearly broke her. "I don't know who I am anymore." His voice trembled as he spoke, not loud, not dramatic, just raw, like each sentence was cutting him from the inside. "Everyone wants something from me. Everyone. And I don't know who's telling the truth anymore. I don't know who loves me or who loves what I can give them." Catherine squeezed his hand. "Michael, people love you. People care." "No," he shook his head hard. "Not them. I mean the people around me. The people inside my circle. The ones who say they protect me. But they're the same ones hurting me." Catherine leaned forward. "Who, Michael?" He swallowed. His jaw tightened. But he didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, he looked toward the window, eyes distant, haunted. "Mom, I hear them talking about me when they think I'm asleep. I see the messages they whisper when they don't think I'm listening. They make decisions about my life, about my health, about my future, and I'm not even in the room." Catherine felt her stomach twist. She had suspected things for years. But hearing Michael confirm it shattered something inside her. "There are people," he continued softly, "who want me working until I collapse. They don't care about me. They care about what I can do, what I can sell, what I can make. And if I say no, suddenly I'm difficult. Suddenly I'm the problem." A tear slid down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. "Mom, I'm tired of being a product." Catherine reached for his shoulder. "You are not a product. You are my son." Michael closed his eyes at those words, as if they were the only truth he'd heard in years. But then another fear surfaced. "And the fans," he whispered. "What if they think I'm abandoning them? They've given me everything. How do I tell them I'm breaking inside? How do I say I can't keep going? They'll think I'm weak." Catherine's voice softened. "You're human, Michael." He opened his eyes, slowly, painfully, and she saw the child she used to tuck into bed after long rehearsals. The boy who cried when he was pushed too hard. The boy who never had the chance to grow without the world watching. "Sometimes," he whispered, "I wish I could disappear. Just for a little while. Just long enough to breathe." Catherine's heart cracked, because she knew he meant it. Not in a dramatic way. Not as a threat. As a confession. A wish. A plea for a life he never got to live. She slid closer, wrapping an arm around his shoulders, pulling him gently against her. He leaned into her, not like a superstar, not like a grown man, but like a son who'd been holding everything inside for far too long. He pressed his face into her shoulder, shoulders trembling. "Mom, I can't do this alone anymore." "You're not alone," Catherine whispered. "You never have been." "But it feels like I am," he said, voice muffled. "Every day, every night, even on stage, even in front of thousands of people. I feel alone." Catherine stroked his hair. "That's because you give all of yourself to the whole world. But who gives back to you?" Michael didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. Very few did. She pulled back gently so she could look into his eyes. "Tell me everything. From the beginning." Michael inhaled deeply, gathering the courage to speak a truth he'd held inside for years. "Mom, there's something I've never told you." Catherine stiffened. Michael looked down at his hands. "There were nights on tour when I couldn't sleep, not because of the concerts, not because of crowds, but because I felt like something bad was coming, like the world was turning against me and I couldn't stop it." Catherine's pulse quickened. "Michael, what are you trying to say?" He lifted his gaze, and in that moment she saw fear. Not fear of the public, not fear of losing fame. Something worse. "Mom," he whispered, "I think someone close to me wants to destroy me." The room went silent. A heavy, suffocating silence. Catherine's hand froze around his, because for the first time that night, Michael wasn't breaking down from exhaustion. He wasn't collapsing under fame. He wasn't drowning in sadness. He was telling her a warning he had been too afraid to say out loud. Catherine's voice trembled. "Michael, who?" Michael opened his mouth, and then a sharp knock echoed through the house. One single knock. Not loud, but enough to steal the breath from both of them. And Michael whispered, "They followed me here." For a long moment, Catherine didn't say anything. She sat beside her son on the edge of the couch, hands clasped tightly, watching Michael pace the living room like a man trapped inside his own mind. Outside, the world kept spinning, cars passing on Havenest Avenue, neighbors preparing for bed. But inside that house, time felt frozen. Michael pushed his fingers through his hair, voice trembling. "I can't breathe in my own life anymore, Mother. I feel like I'm disappearing inside a cage that gets smaller every year." Catherine swallowed hard. "Michael, sit down." He didn't. He kept pacing, like his emotions were too heavy to let him stay in one place. She reached out and gently caught his wrist as he passed. "Sit, please." The word please stopped him. He lowered himself to the couch, his shoulders folding inward, a man collapsing under invisible weight. The lamp beside them cast a warm glow on his face, and for the first time that night, Catherine saw something she had never seen so clearly before. Her son was exhausted in a way sleep couldn't fix. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes hollow. "They don't see me as a person, Mother. They see me as something they can use, pressure, squeeze, manipulate." His voice cracked. "Even people I trust." Catherine felt her heart twist. "Michael, you've always been surrounded by people who want something. But you're strong. You always have been." Michael lifted his head slowly. "Do you know why I'm strong?" She frowned. "What do you mean?" "Because I had to be." His voice was hollow. "Since I was a child. Since before my mind even understood what pressure was. I had to grow strong to survive." Catherine's breath caught. She knew exactly what he meant, and who he meant. Memories flickered behind her eyes. Joseph yelling during rehearsals, the long studio sessions, the long nights in motel rooms where Michael cried silently because he didn't want to wake his brothers. Michael's voice softened to a whisper. "I don't blame you. I never did. But someone should have protected me." Catherine's vision blurred. She blinked away the tears, but a few slipped down her cheeks anyway. "Michael, I'm so sorry. I was young. I didn't know how to stop it." He shook his head. "I'm not angry with you. I'm tired, Mother. I'm tired of fighting. Tired of carrying all of this alone. Tired of pretending I'm okay just because the world expects me to be larger than life." Catherine reached out and placed her hand over his. "Then stop pretending. Not here. Not tonight. Tell me what's really happening." Michael's lips trembled. Everything. The pressure. The lies. The accusations. The rehearsals. The expectations. The money demands. The rumors. His eyes filled. "I can't control any of it anymore." Catherine moved closer. "What happened tonight? Tell me the truth." Michael hesitated, then finally exhaled the secret he'd been holding in. "I got a phone call," he whispered. Catherine stiffened. "From who?" "From someone who worked with me. Someone who should care, but doesn't. They told me I needed to push harder, that people were depending on me, that everything was riding on me getting back out there. They said I didn't have the luxury to slow down." A tear slid down Michael's cheek, and I felt something inside me break. Catherine felt fire rising in her chest, a mother's fire, protective and fierce. "Who talked to you like that?" Michael shook his head. "It doesn't matter." "It does," Catherine insisted. Michael swallowed hard. "They made me feel like a product again. Not a person. Just Michael Jackson. The name, the brand, the bank account. Not the man sitting in this room." Catherine cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. "You are not a product. You are my son." Michael closed his eyes, and for a moment he looked like a boy again, fragile, lost, begging silently for something he had never fully received. Space to be human. Catherine's voice softened. "You told me downstairs that you couldn't do this anymore. What exactly can't you do?" Michael opened his eyes slowly. "Carry this alone." Her heart shattered. "You're not alone." "Sometimes I am," he murmured. "Sometimes it feels like it's just me and the world waiting for me to fail." Catherine shook her head firmly. Michael, listen to me. You survived childhood. You survived fame. You survived the world's judgment. You survived loneliness. You survived betrayal. You survived scrutiny no one on earth could handle. But you are still here, still fighting, still breathing. Michael's lip quivered. But why does it hurt so much, Mother? Because you have a heart, she whispered. A big one. That's your gift and your curse. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that holds years of unspoken truths. Catherine finally stood and walked to the small cabinet in the corner. She opened a drawer and retrieved something wrapped in a white cloth. She brought it back and placed it in Michael's hands. He unwrapped it slowly. It was a small framed photo, him at age 7, smiling shyly on stage during the Jackson 5's early days. I kept this, Catherine said, so I'd never forget the little boy behind the superstar. Michael touched the glass with shaking fingers. Catherine continued, I want you to remember him tonight. Not the world's Michael Jackson. Not the legend. Not the icon. Just the child. The boy. The son. Michael's eyes filled until tears spilled onto his cheeks. Catherine knelt in front of him. Your life is not a cage. It's a calling, and it's bigger than the people who try to control you. But your heart, your peace, that belongs to you, not to the world. Michael inhaled shakily. So what do I do? Catherine held his hands tightly. You rest, Michael. You slow down. You take back your life. Her voice deepened, even if it means shocking the world. Michael stared into his mother's eyes, searching for courage, for strength, for something he had lost along the way. But before he could answer, a phone rang in the kitchen. Michael froze. Catherine turned her head slowly toward the sound. The ringtone wasn't his. It wasn't hers. It wasn't any phone in the house. Michael whispered, trembling, Mother, that phone shouldn't be here. The house had grown silent again, but not the peaceful kind of silence. It was the heavy kind, the kind that follows a storm but doesn't promise calm. Michael sat on the edge of the sofa, hands clasped together, so tightly his fingers turned white. Catherine watched him with quiet worry. She could feel something deeper happening, something he hadn't said yet. Finally, she spoke softly. Michael, there's something you're not telling me. He lifted his head slowly. His eyes glistened, but he wasn't crying. Not yet. The kind of pain sitting behind those eyes was too old for tears. It had been carried for decades, buried under rehearsals, interviews, touring perfection. Mom, he whispered, do you think I'm a good person? Catherine's breath caught. She had expected many questions about pressure, fame, exhaustion. But not this. Never this. Michael, she said firmly, why would you even ask me that? Michael swallowed hard, his voice trembling. Because I don't know anymore. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling as though his answer might be written somewhere in the shadows. All my life, he continued, I've tried to give people love. I've tried to be gentle. I've tried to be kind. But the world keeps twisting it. Every gesture, every dream, everything I do becomes something else in someone's mouth. His voice cracked, the sharp kind that comes from years of holding things in. Do you know what it's like, he said slowly, to give everything you have and still be treated like you're not human? Catherine closed her eyes. She'd watched him climb the world. She'd also watched the world try to break him. Michael, she said softly, the world has always tried to take too much from you. Michael nodded slowly, as though he'd been waiting his whole life to hear her say that. But that's not the worst part, he whispered. Catherine leaned forward. Tell me. Michael clasped his hands tighter. His breath shuddered. The worst part is that some nights I start to wonder if they're right. Silence. Michael didn't move. Catherine didn't breathe. It was a confession too heavy for his chest, too painful for his voice. A confession he had never spoken aloud, not even to his closest friends, not even to himself. And once the words left his lips, they changed everything in the room. Catherine, he whispered, am I losing myself? She blinked, stunned. Michael, I look in the mirror, and I don't see the boy who sang in Gary. I don't see the young man who danced on stage like nothing could hurt him. I just see pieces, and I don't know which ones were stolen and which ones I gave away willingly. His whole body trembled. I feel like I'm disappearing, Mom. Catherine placed a hand over her heart. She had seen him tired before. She had seen him overwhelmed before. She had seen him bruised by fame, by media, by people who didn't know him. But she had never, not once, heard her son say he was disappearing. She moved closer until she was right beside him. "Michael," she said softly, "look at me." He did, and she saw it. Not the pop icon, not the legend, not the performer. She saw her child, her baby, her fragile, scared, exhausted child. "You are still Michael," she said, her voice steady. "You are still the boy who loved music. You are still the young man who cared more about children than awards. You are still the man who prayed before every show." But he shook his head weakly. "Mom, I don't feel like him anymore." She touched his face gently. "Then we'll find him again. Together." Michael didn't respond. He just stared at her, as if her voice was the last thing keeping him from falling apart completely. But then, a sound came from the hallway, a soft vibration, then a buzz. Michael froze. Catherine stiffened. The house phone, the old landline, was ringing. At that hour? No one called the house phone at that hour. No one. The ringing echoed down the hallway like a warning. Michael turned slowly toward the sound. Catherine whispered, "Do you want me to get it?" But Michael shook his head. "No," he whispered. I think it's for me." He stood up, walked toward the dark hallway, each step slower than the last. Catherine's voice trembled behind him. "Michael, who calls at this hour?" He didn't answer. He reached the phone, stared at it. The ringing stopped. He lifted it anyway. "Hello?" Silence. Then a voice. Low, familiar, and enough to make Michael's entire body go cold. "Michael," the voice said, "we need to talk." Michael's knees nearly buckled. He knew that voice, and he never wanted to hear it again. Morning light crept slowly through the thin curtains of Katherine Jackson's living room, settling over the space where Michael had collapsed into her arms just hours earlier. The house was quiet now, almost sacred. Everything felt suspended in a fragile silence, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what Michael would do next. Catherine sat beside him on the couch, her hand gently stroking his forearm the way she used to when he was a boy who couldn't fall asleep after nightmares. Except this time the nightmare wasn't imaginary. It was his life. Michael blinked awake slowly. His eyes were puffy, his voice dry when he whispered, "Is it morning already?" Catherine nodded, offering a soft, encouraging smile. "You needed rest. You finally slept." Michael sat up weakly, running a hand through his messy curls. "I didn't mean to fall apart like that," he said. "I don't want you to worry, Mom." "I'm your mother," she said gently. "Worrying about you is woven into my bones." Michael swallowed hard, guilt tightening his throat. "I've disappointed everyone, the fans, the children who look up to me, the family, and you." Catherine's eyebrows furrowed with pain. "Michael, no, you haven't disappointed me. You've carried the weight of the world for so long that you forgot you could set it down." Michael looked down at his trembling hands. "What if I can't fix myself this time? What if I'm fading and I don't even know how to stop it?" Catherine shifted closer. "Then you don't face it alone." Those words hit Michael with a force he hadn't expected. You don't face it alone. For years he believed the opposite, that being Michael Jackson meant suffering in silence, fighting battles no one else could understand. But in this moment, he was just her son, not a legend, not a machine, not the face of a global phenomenon, just her child. Tears welled in his eyes again, gentler this time, as if some internal wall had finally cracked. "Mom," he whispered, "I feel like the world wants a piece of me I don't have left to give." Catherine cupped his face with both hands. "Then let the world wait. Your health, your heart, your peace, those come first. You've given everything to everyone. It's okay to stop, to breathe, to be human." Michael inhaled shakily. "What if stepping back makes me look weak?" Catherine shook her head. "True strength is knowing when your soul needs healing. Michael leaned his head against her shoulder again, absorbing every word. Slowly, he began to feel something he had forgotten existed. Relief. For the first time in years, he wasn't performing. He wasn't defending himself. He wasn't pretending. He was simply allowed to feel. After several long minutes, he finally whispered, "What do I do now?" Catherine brushed his hair softly like when he was a child. "You tell the truth. To yourself first. Then to the people who love you. And then you take one step at a time, not 10. Michael nodded slowly. One step. That felt possible. "Can I stay here today?" he asked. "You can stay as long as you need," she said. "This home is still your sanctuary." Michael wiped his face with the sleeve of his sweater. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to go back out there." Catherine held his chin gently. "You are, but you don't have to be strong right this second. You only need to be honest." He stared at her for a moment, absorbing her strength, her steadiness. "I'm scared, Mom." "I know, but fear doesn't mean failure. It just means you're still human." Those words landed deep in Michael's chest. Still human. Not an untouchable icon. Not a flawless superstar. Not a myth. Still human. As the morning warmed the room, he rose to his feet slowly. Catherine stood with him, steadying him with a hand on his arm. Michael took a breath. Not a shaky one, a real one. "Maybe," he said softly, "maybe I can start again. Differently. Carefully." Catherine smiled. The kind of smile only a mother who has witnessed both the rise and the collapse of her child can give. "Michael, you can start whenever you want, and wherever you want. But promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you'll never wait this long to tell me you're hurting." Michael looked down. "I'm sorry." "No," she whispered, pulling him into another hug. "Just promise." He took a long breath. "I promise." They stood like that for a long time, mother and son. Two souls bound by love far stronger than fame or expectation. Outside, the sun continued to rise. Inside, Michael felt something shift, not dramatically but quietly. A soft beginning. A fragile seed of healing planted in the safest place he knew, his mother's presence. He wasn't suddenly fixed. He wasn't suddenly strong. But he wasn't alone anymore. And that was enough. As he looked around the living room, the family photos, the old piano, the memories of childhood simplicity, he finally understood the truth. This night didn't break him. It saved him. If this story touched your heart, remember, even legends carry invisible burdens. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with someone who loves Michael Jackson. Your support keeps his legacy alive. Not just as a superstar, but as a human being who felt deeply, loved deeply, and needed love just like all of us.